Hello, everyone. My name is Pano Zevsta. I'm the founder and CEO of Dawn Health, and today I have the honor to have with me on this July webinar, Dr. Lauren Hodge, right? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Hodges. Yeah, there's
Hodges.
an S on the end, but that's okay.
All right. Sorry about that. So what we want to accomplish today is really, and through those monthly webinars, is to be an educational format and ultimately increase awareness in families about mental wellness. We don't want to talk about mental illness. We all know that, right? So today I want to talk about Dr. Lauren, kind of your story around your app called Kula, KulaEmpowered.com, and really give us insight on kind of your journey and what led you here, led you at this point. But first, let me have you introduce yourself.
Sure. So thank you so much, Panos. It's a joy to be here with you and chatting with you. So I'm so glad we got to be connected. So like you said, yes, my name is Lauren, and I started an app. It's a company called Kula Empowered, and Kula is the Sanskrit term for community. And so I wanted to name that because I feel like it's very important for as a community for us to kind of band together for children. And like you said, children's wellness, not illness. So Kula is an interesting story. So I have worked in child welfare for over 10 years, worked with kids, worked with victims, worked with parents, and went back to school to get my doctorate in social work a couple of years ago, and was really focused on trying to answer the question of how we prevent child victimization. Because I'd had so many kind of, anecdotal conversations with parents about things that have happened with their kids and why didn't they talk to me and why didn't they tell me? That just kept coming up over and over and over again. And so I thought there has to be a way for us to make this connection. Went down weird sort of rabbit holes of trying to figure this out and how we can kind of develop an intervention that's going to be easy and accessible for parents. We know that our caregivers are very busy and have a lot going on. We also didn't want to put it into the school system. We know our educators are overburdened with a number of different interventions that they have to take on already. And then just one day, it kind of hit me. I was pregnant at the time, and I was using an app that provided me with sort of weekly updates on my pregnancy. And it was a bit of an aha moment when I thought, why don't we turn this into an app? We give parents and caregivers, little snippets of info every month to help sort of connect them with their child in a way that is easily digestible. It's not sort of like academic. It's not written in a way that people don't understand. It's meant to kind of like just guide, not tell parents what to do, but sort of give ideas of different ways they can talk to their child. With the idea being that we're trying to increase communication, and we're trying to increase communication around those really tricky, sticky subjects that nobody really wants to talk about. But our research and evidence has told us that children as young as 3 can start having conversations about things, and they will remember things as long as it's consistently shared with them. And so the app sort of came to be out of that, sort of a school, my doctoral thesis, a pregnancy, and and my experience in child welfare. And so it's meant for caregivers of children 3 to 18, and every month it gets them a little push notification on their cell phone, like, hey, this is what's going on this month. Take a look at what you can do with your kid. And it talks about and gives them ideas of different ways that they can understand what's going on for their child developmentally, normative developmental stages, different social influences to kind of be aware of and think about. And then it has an activity, and the activity could be just a discussion prompt, or it could be an actual activity, a link to a website with something that's really cool that they can do with their kid or on their own to really understand how they can have discussions about anything relating to their child's personal safety and empowerment. Because we don't want it to be scary. We want it to be empowering. We want parents to feel confident and empowered in having these discussions. And we want, in turn, the child to feel really empowered and comfortable and confident in talking to their parent about these different tricky, sticky subject matters. And so it ranges from everything from water safety with younger kids to car seat safety, which has changed a lot since I was a kid, all the way up to dating violence and bullying and consent. And so it's appropriate given the age range, and it really just attempts to try and give parents that sort of guidance and leeway into understanding how to broach these subjects in a non-scary way.
So let me ask you this. really, right, it's almost like an education. It sounds to me like it's almost like an educational assistant, right? That is consistent, of course, month over month for parents and typically younger parents too, right? When I say younger parents, parents that have younger kids, and really is trying to kind of almost give you that awareness that kind of the blind spot that we all have as parents, right? That for topics that we probably I know that probably I have skipped talking about with my kids, or being aware of that I need to be more mindful around my kids, right? So I really love the idea of that push notification that kind of almost like out of the blue, you say, hey, this is something to look into. What have you found really? And I love your life story, kind of the story behind Kula, that it's a livable experience, right? And kind of you're associated with your pregnancy, because my wife the same way, right? She's using an app kind of with notifications, right? That hey, your baby's this big, and this is what to watch for. What have you identified as a mother, and also as a professional? What are we missing as parents in this era versus several years ago, where cell phones were not present, right? What do you see the major difference there?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think for most parents that I've encountered or worked with, it's the big thing for all of us is that we don't know what we don't know, right? And then I found that a lot of parents don't know what they wish they thought they knew also. So they want to know something, but they don't even know it exists or where to seek it out. And so I think that with what comes with our advances in technology and the ease and the access also comes this very scary, the world is open to everybody that wants to Google something. And it can be really overwhelming. And so I think this dichotomy of people that want to know information, but it's overwhelming to even look, right? And know if you're getting a solid source of who's providing the information and has it been vetted appropriately, or it's almost like too scary to look. And so we head in the sand and say, like, I can't handle it. And I've been in that boat, because when I was pregnant, it was too much. I couldn't look. I didn't want to know. And I think it's really hard to kind of find that balance. And I also think that what's out there can be a little fear mongering, in that if you don't do this, your kid will end up like this. And I really think that it's important for our parents to know that they're doing an excellent job. I mean, the fact that parents are reaching out and looking for resources is like the first good pat on the back that we should all have for ourselves. And that it's just such a hard job. You always are self-doubting. You're trying to figure out how to make sure this little human is alive and well, and it's all your responsibility. And so how do we do that? And we do that well, feeling supported along the way. And so I really wanted something that was supportive and not sort of chastising or making parents feel like they've done anything wrong. And sometimes I think the information that's out there can feel as though if we don't do what's being said out there, that we feel like we're failing as a parent. And really, I wanted to just shepherd our parents into a place where say, like, you're all doing a great job. We're all here to try and figure it out together. And again, back to the name of the company and the app is it's our community's responsibility to help raise our children. And I think as a community, we stand together to make sure we're making really strong, brave, and kind, intelligent little people, the next generation. And so I think that that's really important as well. And I hear a lot from parents, that same experience of that overwhelming nature. So we wanted to take that away and try and make it as user-friendly and as simple and fun as something like this could be. With some
Exactly.
humor.
So let me ask you something. I wanted to touch on two things that you just said. The first one is, we live in an era where, there is a vast volume of information thrown at us on a daily basis, right? Every second of the day, I would say, right? Especially the social media, we have ended up, not knowing what is true, what is fake. Right? Mm-hmm. So what is your experience, your livable experience in your professional advice to parents that, they're at the stage where, I don't know what I don't know, but where do you start, right? Mm-hmm. Because again, there's a vast amount of resources with even exponentially vast amount of information that have been thrown to us. But where do we start as parents?
Yeah, I think that's, it's really interesting because I think that there's a huge cultural influence in that question as well. Like it totally depends on where you live, how you live, and the environment around you in terms of where you go to get your information, right? Like for some
Yeah.
folks, it's like you trust your family members and your friends, and for others, you trust professionals. And so I think it's knowing what your circle is and what you feel comfortable with. And I think the best sort of indicator for all of us is it's kind of cheesy, but trust your gut. Like if you think that something doesn't, smell right, like it's probably for a reason. But the really good thing I think is the app has a lot of resources on a resource page that can direct people to really strong, already vetted organizations that are in an industry of, protection and child victimization advocacy. And if that's a route that parents have information or a need for information, pardon me, then that's something that they can do as well on our resources and support page. And it connects them to different agencies across the United States and Canada. And I think, when you're looking for things, be wary of the things that are not shared by people that perhaps have the, I guess, be cautious of who's saying what and what they're saying. I think that always is kind of what boils down to it, and sort of like what do they hope to gain by what they're putting out there, is always that answer. And then I always say trust your gut. I think your gut tells you a lot, and we need to pay more attention to it.
Yeah, because I would say in the last 4 to 5 years, we have this influencer grouping on social media that they're experts on everything, and of course a lot of people fall victims, right, or that walk mindset and culture and whatever you want to call it, that just because they have so many followers, right, whatever they say it's right or it's true. And little do we know, right? So I would say vettering the information as parents, as you said, it's important, and then having, a resource that can direct you to additional resources and information around the subject, right, that you're developing. And it's around child and parenting wellness, right, and then relationship building is going to be important. So let me touch on another point here, and thank you for answering that question. You mentioned about the community being responsible to raise the little ones, right? So talk to me about more, right? I have my beliefs about the subject, but I want to hear your thoughts about the role of the family, right? The parents, or the parents in this case, and then the role of the community. Where is the synergy, and then where is the differentiating factor, right? Which one comes first, or how is that partnership or relationship between the community and the parent and the child comes together?
Yeah, I think that number one, it's the family unit is the most important sort of developer of a child, right? And so who's tucking them in at night is what I always want to know. And in my time, working in child welfare and social services and with multiple agencies, and it's a multidisciplinary team surrounding many children, there was always this knowledge and understanding that the parent or caregiver will always know and be the expert in their child's life. And I think that the respect for that is paramount. Like we need to understand that caregivers of children, whether it's mom, dad, auntie, grandma, foster mom, adoptive father, like whoever that person is that's taking care of that child and raising that child, they are the expert. And that's part of what I'm really hoping to see the app do for parents' lives, is that reinforcing and sort of invigorating that connections for the child to see the parent as the expert in their life as well, because that is where we will then see that child will go to that parent to ask them questions versus going to Google or going to their friends at school. We want them to be at home and knowing that they can ask, mom, dad, auntie, whoever about these tough subjects. And then when the community becomes involved, is that we see it as a joining in. And so the school people, the coaches, your religious or faith-based community or affiliation, those people are sort of on the periphery and they're wrapping around you, and that we want those people to all have similar goals, to be able to come and join in as a community to help raise that child. And that what would be ideal would be to make sure that those individuals are on the same page as our parents and caregivers when it comes to addressing these subjects, and that we want to see the teachers and our coaches feel really comfortable and confident being able to redirect the child to their parent as the expert, or if they need to be the one that's confident and comfortable in having those discussions, that they're given the right language and the right opportunity to engage with the child, so that the child feels supported and engaged and believed above anything else.
Well, this is incredible. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I've never thought of it myself that way. Like, of course, we as parents, we want to be the source of truth, right, for our kids, because ultimately we are the source of influence, at least at the beginning parts of their life, right? But of course, now the era that we live in, with social media and all the digital access, of course, now there's a lot of other resources of influence for our kids as early as they can touch a tablet right now, like 3 years old. I really loved your comment about, we almost like we start having this perceived expertise, but what you're trying to do, right, just very similar to Dawn Health, right, really builds a substance behind that perceived expertise, and become, close to an expert as possible, right, as a parent, because of course we need to be more internal learners than experts. But I like how you said how, ultimately you want to create a community where outside of the direct family, people redirect the child to who they need to be talking to and having the discussions with. I really love that, because, what we see now in society is the opposite, right? Now, back in the day, for example, when I grew up, right, there was no cell phones. There was no so many channels on TV, and we were outside all the time, right? And playing with our friends, and we were confining things to our parents, right? I would say majority of the time, and for majority of the topics, of course. But nowadays, I see this relationship between children and parents breaking apart, and really separating. And now the parent almost does not have the position and the role of the conciliary, as Italians would love to say, in the family for the child, but really almost looks like the enemy, like the bad person, the bad guy, or and this is unfortunate. I mean, what is your take professionally? What have you seen, and what have you lived personally that indicates that, are we heading in either direction? Are we heading in a reset where we're going to start seeing more of a bonding experience moving forward between parents and children? Very similar to exactly what I praise, and we try to praise through Dawn Health, to really bring the unity, right, through this mental wellness journey. Or are you seeing that technology will further penetrate that relationship? Because I don't know how familiar you are, but in California, right, there is a new law, and I'm not sure if it's been voted or is going to be voted, where it really allows other people, right, to block the family away from this discussion. Kind of opposite of what you said. Instead of bringing the child back to the source, or where they should be having a discussion with, they say, you have that discussion with me, and we will exclude your family. So what is your take on all that? What do you see as going?
Yeah, I think it's tough, because I think with anything, we see this pendulum that kind of swings both ways. I think that as a society, we've come to a point where it's getting to this divide, this natural divide through the impact of technology, where we are siloed, like, I'm here and you're here, and then you're over here, and there's not as much communication. And then a thought to kind of fix that is to use technology to then be the communicator, right? Like, if we can't beat them, join them. So let's see if we can use technology to be a part of bringing folks together. And so that's definitely one avenue to go out. But I'm wondering if, instead of doing it that way, we could use it more differently, like with the app, to say these are ways you can communicate and connect with your child. So using technology to learn about, connections and communication techniques for your kid, and what's going to work for them and how to kind of understand them. I think that, it's really tough for a lot of parents and families to kind of get with how much things are changing, and at the pace in which things are changing. It's almost like you can't even keep up at times with the ways that, the school system education is changing. Like, the way they teach math now is very different than when I was taught math in school, and so you feel behind naturally. Like, how am I going to help my child with their math homework when I don't even know how math is taught anymore? And how am I going to keep up with the language, the verbiage that my kids are using when they're talking about things, and then I see that it actually means something else? So there's so much to kind of feel like you need to be on top of to be able to maintain that relationship. And I think that, at the end of the day, the most crucial and pressing thing is, does your child feel safe with you at home? Does your child feel like you are the person that they can go to and talk to about all these things? And the best way to do that is to start young and to do it often, so that we can engage that relationship early and consistently, so that that kid is never going to think like, I have to go to Google to find this out, or I have to go to my friends to find this out. They already know about these things because they're trusted, safe adult. That person that tucks them in and is taking care of them, that's the person that has gone to them about all things tricky and icky and sticky that relate to things. And we as parents are the ones that we screw it up, right? Like, we make it awkward, we make it uncomfortable. And if we're just given the tools differently and in a way that makes it like, it's okay to talk about these things. It's okay to say, real body parts names. It's okay to talk about these things with kids, because kids want to know too. Like, I heard the best analogy I've ever heard is that we do all this work to help prepare our kids to drive cars. We give them the book, we tell them study, learn the rules. There are rules, there are boundaries. Then there's just sort of common sense things that you just don't do that we teach them. There's a lot of preparation before we even test them and then give them the opportunity to go off and do it on their own. And even then, when they're doing it off on their own, they're still supervised, right? There's a period of time where they're supervised. Yet we don't do that for anything else in our child's life. And especially when the most dynamic and complex thing is relationships. And most of what we're responsible for as parents, I think, is demonstrating relationships. And we communicate that and we model that for them. Yet we don't give them a guidebook. We don't tell them what the rules are. We don't tell them what the common sense things are to stay away from and to understand. And so if we have these conversations with our kids, then we're giving them all of the preamble that they need before they get out into the world and they start practicing on their own, they start doing it on their own, and then they come back because you're still their supervisor, right? You're still the one that's teaching them and watching them while they're driving the car. They will know that you're the person that they can come back to and talk to because you're the one that gave them all of the rules in the first place. So it just makes sense for them to come back to you. And so my hope is that if we can talk to our kids as young as possible, get that sort of developmentally appropriate language out there to our parents, empower our parents to feel confident and competent in these discussions, we will get to that point. And that, I think, will help sort of maybe slow the trajectory of feeling like we're behind the eight ball when it comes to technology and the influence that it has on our lives.
It's amazing. I really loved your example of the teaching our kids how to to drive, kind of the whole journey, right, until they get their driving license. You're so right. We don't do that anywhere else, for crying out loud, And also, I loved your comment about we exhibit, right? If we want to teach them about relationships, the first thing we do is exhibit. I was saying, and I heard, I learned that in my time when I was an engineer in manufacturing. So, you have to know the way, you have to show the way, and then you have to go the way, right? In any change process that you want to implement in any environment. And that's so true because you have to know the substance and I would say the ins and outs of relationship. You don't have to be an expert, but you have to have the knowledge, right? That means you have to read, right? And then you have to go the way, and that means you have to practice. right? Because I see a lot of us reading books, but it's just we're reading books as leisure, not to learn to practice, right? So knowledge is not necessarily does not become a lesson until we practice it, and then and then we really can call ourselves an expert when we go the way with somebody else. And there's a saying that when you start teaching something, right, that's where you start innovating and finding the gaps, and really, you also fundamentally you reinforce that knowledge you have of the subject. We don't do that. You're so right, for crying out loud, right? I mean, we drive every day, right? So we practice every day, presumably, right, on the driving skill set, but unintentionally, we also having a relationship every day with our partner, right? And I don't think our subconscious is there to say, now you're in a driving mode, right? So be careful, because you're having, if your kid sits at the back and sees you driving like a maniac, right? Of course, guess what? They're going to start with the toy cars and RC cars and driving like that, and then eventually it's going to become a habit. I'm a big believer that we influence those meta conditions, those neural pathways in our kids early on, and based on what they see, right, they will exhibit later on, because that's becomes the basic, the norm for them. Of course, as they grow, they're going to find new information, right? But their true north is going to be that habit that you have exhibited as a parent. And I want to give you an example here. Early on, when we had our first child, Evelyn, me and my wife, used to hug each other, right? And then every morning and throughout the day too. And then we'll also grab our daughter, right? And, bring her with us, almost like, as a group hug. And I see her now, almost 4 years old. And by herself, she will bring us together, the two of us. And, she's not told enough to hug our feet, but, she will grab our feet and bring us together. And we used to do that as early as she was born, and we used to have that group hug. And it's really interesting to see that. It's not something that we instigate. Sometimes, we'll be in the kitchen all together and she will do that for us. Or if it's here, she will come running, right? Because she wants to be part of that group hug. And this is amazing because, again, you said it so right. I mean, this is going to get stuck with me. I almost going to invite you to write a book about this topic too, because we don't do that. I mean, it's so obvious. But right now, as a parent, I feel so stupid because, man, you're so right. That's such a fundamental skill, which is driving, right? But we don't do that anywhere else. I mean, that right there is my aha moment today. I mean, it's amazing. And here's what I will let you kind of comment on that, but also, how have you, as a mother, right, and then as a professional, have turned that lesson that now you just gave me into your life? If you can share an example.
Yeah, my daughter's very young, but I do agree that they're perceptive. They pick up on everything. They see things. They're watching you. They're learning from you. We are their first teachers of all things, and then their environment, like when they're little, right? Like before they're out and they have multiple other people influencing them, they live in a bubble of what is normal to them, and it's us, right? It's whoever is taking care of them. And so they kind of they tuck that away. It goes into their little brain, like Evelyn, right? The group hug. And then they bring it out when they feel like it's appropriate, and they're trying to model that same behavior. I've seen, even though she's little and she likes to copycat things in different ways, it's very cute. I'm excited to see how she grows up to do some of those things. But I think, not only do we want to model and show them by acting, but talking them through things as well. And, a big thing for me is, changing some language, I think, is really important. Language is so incredibly powerful. And, talking with our kids, and I think you posted something like this recently, but it was funny because I had just talked to my mom about this, is that, we don't say, no, bad girl, don't do that, because there's no such thing as a bad girl. There's some, maybe some not so cool behaviors, right? Like maybe pinching me hurts, but you're not a bad person. And I think recognizing the shift in language and how that can be not only interpreted by the person receiving it, but then how the person saying it is sort of influencing that relationship and what that feels like over time. And the more we say, the more we kind of lean into something and more we believe it. And so if we step away from the language and we're really careful with our language, I think that that's really important. And I think, to what you were saying about using the driving example, when you kind of like pull back and think about raising children in general, parenting in general, what our main focus is trying to help develop people that will be strong, good, kind people in the world, right? Like we just want our kids to be good humans. And how are people good humans, and what does that act out and kind of feel like in the world? It's predominantly what, the basis of human nature is relationships. And I think relationships run a gamut. Like it's your acquaintance down the street all the way up to your spouse. But I think it's really important for our kids to understand their relationship to others and their relationship to themselves, and how they care for themselves and how they're empowering themselves and they take control of themselves and their body and make sure that they're safe and that they are treated with respect and they treat others with respect. And I think that is another thing that's very fascinating that's come out from our COVID years, is that our kids were home alone a lot, or maybe not alone, but maybe, with a computer and not supervised as much. And so what became sort of something that they could see and learn on the internet, or do on the internet, is not the same as what you would do in real life face to face with people. And so not only have we seen an interesting dynamic when our COVID babies are now kind of, who were alone, not seeing anybody, now going off into the school age years, but then it'll be really interesting to see how our teens have been able to kind of, when they're really through that identity phase, like preteen, early adolescent, in developing their identity, and how they kind of had made meaning of themselves through this online relationship with teachers and peers, to now going out into the world and having to navigate relationships in a very different format, because you can't do the things that you thought you could do or get away with on the internet. Like we all say, the keyboard warriors wouldn't say, there's many people that won't say what they would say in real life that they will say on a computer, right? And so I think that's going to be interesting too, and how we navigate that as parents and as a community, to understand how we have those conversations and how we're teaching our children about social nuances and acceptance and what's appropriate and respectful. Will be really neat to see how that comes out. Sort of fascinating, I think.
You're spot on. I mean, from we felt it the same way, right? As adults, where we got isolated, right, from our environments and our acquaintances. So it had an impact on adults, yet alone on teens, and of course, earlier, adolescents. So as we're coming to a close on this webinar, I have one last question for you. Based on your life experiences, and of course, surrounding your professional expertise, what would be your, single advice, that you would give to a mother, right, or a dad, based on, of course, surrounding how you came up with Kula?
Mm-hmm. I would say the biggest thing is talk to your kids in a way that they know that you will be the one that they can talk to about everything. I think a lot of parents I've seen have really strong relationships with their kids, but they wait too late to say, you can talk to me about this, right? Like, for example, a lot of our teens, and when it has to do with like consent and sexual relationships, a lot of times when it's time for that conversation in the parent's mind, it's far too late for that child. And so if we can kind of rewind a little bit and get in front of it in a way to say, make sure that you're the person that your kid knows they can go to about all things. So trying to make those conversations and those topics not off limits or weird, but that's something that you're open to addressing. I think if we have that openness and communication for any caregiver of any kid, that we will see a lot of good come from that. And not only will we see hopefully an increase in engagement, but I'm hoping for a decrease in victimization as well, knowing that our kids are able to know that there's one person that they can go to and talk to about really anything. And not that they, people always say, like, you can tell me anything and you won't get in trouble. Well, there's some things that you might get in trouble for,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
But I think it's, you can tell me anything and I will listen to you and I will be here and we will figure it out, is a very different sentiment and statement for kids. Says you don't want to make a promise that you can't keep, and being able to say, you can tell me and we'll figure it out together. And whatever it is, we'll go through it. I think is far more powerful for a child than anything else.
Well, I mean, if I can take a lesson learned today, as a parent, I would say is I love your closing statement about, open-minded as a parent does not necessarily mean being open to every idea that is out there, right? But really being open-minded to be there to listen, to understand, not just listen to react and respond to the child. And I think that really resonates with me because, being there and being a partner to my child is so important. And what makes me realize too is, as parents, we need knowledge, we need awareness, but we need to practice. So we always need a caddy to our golf game. And that's why, I would say your app is a great awareness tool, without a doubt. And this is something that we also embrace and we promote and teach Dawn Health, because it's not just about having therapy to solve your child's mental health problems and challenges. It starts all with parenting, right? And as I say, is a pill would not make you a better parent. The pill will not make your child be a better child, right? But everything starts in that relationship. And really, I love, partnering with you because I'm a big promoter of bringing the family back together and making sure that the children and the parents are working together as one unit, because we have lived experiences that when that unity doesn't exist, it really, unfortunately, it's a debt that the child will carry on their life. So we need to make sure that we give them equity and investment that we can carry on in their life, not debt, right? So Laura, thank you so much. I mean, I felt like, I did a parenting 101 training with you today. So thank you so much for taking your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Panos. It's been wonderful chatting with you.
Your story behind Kula. We will continue promoting Kula through Dawn Health as well, and I want people to visit and download the app from Apple and the Google Store. It's really low cost. I mean, it's less than a cup of coffee that you spend, and it's one-time fee. But man, thank you so much for your time, and has been really insightful. And I would love to bring you back in a future webinar and really, dig into the parenting aspect of things, because I'm a big believer we will never achieve mental wellness in our families and our children without proper parenting behaviors. And also, I don't believe that we're in adolescent mental health crisis. I believe we're in a parenting mental health crisis. And the adolescent aspect of it is just an unintended outcome of that lack of parenting, right? Or, low quality of parenting, whatever you want to call it. So, Dr. Lauren, thank you so much. It was lovely to spend time with you today.
Awesome. Thank you, Panos. I appreciate the time.